The Valari had conquered 17 species. Their warriors stood 8 feet tall. Their armor was harder than any metal humans had ever made. They moved through the galaxy like a storm, and every world they touched became theirs. Admiral Toreth sat in his command chair and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. His scouts had found a human colony on Kepler 442b. The report said these creatures were small. They had soft skin and weak bodies. They built their homes from simple metal and stone. How many of them? Toreth asked his officer. 2,000, Admiral. Mostly miners. They dig for minerals in the mountains. Toreth laughed. It was a deep sound that echoed through the bridge. Send 300 warriors. That should be more than enough for such weak creatures. The dropships fell from the sky like angry birds. Inside each one, 50 Valari warriors checked their weapons. They had done this many times before. Land, kill, conquer. It was simple work. The first ship touched, down outside the main settlement. The doors opened. The warriors poured out into the cold morning air. A human stood in their path. She was young, maybe 20 years old by human counting. She held a mining drill in her hands like a weapon. Her name was Yuna, and she was terrified. But she did not run. "You will not take our home," she said. Her voice shook, but her hands did not. The lead Valari warrior looked down at her. He was almost 3 times her size. His armor gleamed in the early light. He raised his weapon to push her aside. Yuna pressed the trigger on her mining drill. The beam cut through his armor like it was paper. The warrior fell. For a moment, everyone froze. No one had ever seen a Valari warrior fall so easily. Then the chaos began. The humans came from everywhere. They poured out of buildings and tunnels. They carried mining tools, metal pipes, and homemade explosives. They screamed as they charged. The Valari were stronger. The Valari were faster. The Valari had better weapons. But the humans did not stop. A Valari warrior knocked a man to the ground. Before he could finish the kill, 3 more humans jumped on his back. They stabbed at the gaps in his armor with kitchen knives. He threw them off, but more came dot in the central square. A group of miners had built a barricade from mining carts and metal sheets. They fought from behind it with whatever they could find. When their weapons failed, they threw rocks. When they ran out of rocks, they threw themselves at the enemy. An old man named Dong Su led the defense of the power station. He was 63 years old. His hands shook when he walked. But when the Valari came, he stood at the door with a welding torch and refused to move. "You want this station?" he shouted. "Come and take it." They killed him. But while they fought him, his granddaughter set the reactor to overload. The explosion took out 40 Valari warriors. The battle lasted 9 hours. 9 hours of screaming and blood and fire. 9 hours of humans dying and refusing to stay dead. When the sun set, 112 Valari lay in the dirt. The humans had lost more. Much more. But they had won. Admiral Toreth received the report in silence. His officers waited for him to speak. None of them knew what to say. How is this possible? Toreth finally asked. "They are small. They are weak. They have no real weapons. They fought with everything they had, Admiral. They used their mining equipment. They used explosives. When those ran out, they used their hands. And they would not surrender? No, Admiral. Not one of them. Even when they were wounded. Even when they were dying. They kept fighting." Toreth stood and walked to the viewing window. The stars stretched out before him, cold and endless. "Then we will teach them what real war looks like. Prepare the full invasion force. 50,000 warriors." The next months were dark times for humanity. The Valari came in numbers that blotted out the sun. They hit colony after colony, Station after station, Una survived the first battle. She joined the United Earth Defense Force. They gave her a real uniform and a real weapon. They sent her to the front lines. She was there when the Valari took Outpost Gamma 7. She watched her friends die around her. She fired her rifle until the barrel melted from the heat. Then she picked up a dead soldier's weapon and kept firing. The humans lost that battle. They lost the next one too. And the one after that, but every victory cost the Valari dearly. Human soldiers refused to give up. They rigged their own bases with bombs. They fought hand-to-hand against enemies twice their size. They died with their fingers wrapped around enemy throats. A captured Valari soldier was asked what he thought of humans. He could only say one thing over and over again. They do not stop. They do not stop. Admiral Tarath grew worried. His warriors were winning, but the cost was too high. He needed to end this war quickly. He looked at his maps and found his target. Sol Station. It was the largest human settlement in the sector. 3 million humans lived there, floating in the darkness between stars. If we break Sol Station, Taurus said, we break their spirit. We show them that resistance is useless. His fleet moved out the next morning. 47 warships, carrying enough warriors to drown the station in blood. Taurus did not know that his message had been intercepted. He did not know that somewhere on Earth, in a building that did not officially exist, a group of very special soldiers was already preparing. The Valari had seen what human soldiers could do. They thought they understood. They were very, very wrong. Sol Station was beautiful. It hung in the empty space between stars like a giant wheel made of light. 3 million people lived inside its spinning walls. They had schools and hospitals and parks with real trees. Children played in streets that curved upward into the sky. Commander Ga loved this station. She had lived here for 20 years. She had raised her daughter here. She had buried her husband here. Now she stood in the command center and watched death approach. 47 ships, Commander, her officer said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. They will be in weapons range in 6 hours. Ga was 43 years old. She had gray in her hair and lines on her face. She had fought in 2 wars before this one, but she had never seen anything like this. How long until our relief force arrives? She asked. 18 days. Maybe more. 18 days. She looked at the enemy fleet on her screen. 47 warships. Tens of thousands of warriors. Her station had guns designed to stop pirates, not armies. Begin moving civilians to the intersections, she ordered. And get me a line to Earth Command. I need to talk to someone about options. The Valari did not wait. They sent their demand at midnight. Surrender or die. Give up your weapons. Open your doors. Bow to the Dominion. Ga read the message twice. Then she deleted it. Tell them no. She said. The first attack came 3 hours later. Boarding pods shot from the Valari ships like bullets. They punched through the station's outer hull and stuck there like metal thorns. Doors opened. Warriors poured out. Ga had prepared as best she could. Her people waited at every choke point, every narrow corridor, every blast door. The station was not built for war, but she would make it a fortress anyway. Sergeant Dalhan commanded the defense of Section 12. He was 51 years old, with a round face and kind eyes. Before the war, he had been counting the days until retirement. He had planned to go back to his family's farm in New Bizin. He had planned to grow vegetables and watch his grandchildren play. Now he stood behind a wall of overturned tables and cargo boxes, watching the corridor ahead. Hold your fire until they're close, he told his people. Most of them were not soldiers. They were teachers and engineers and shopkeepers. But they held their weapons steady. The first Valari appeared at the end of the corridor. Then another. Then 10 more. They had to crouch to fit through the human-sized passages. Their armor scraped against the walls. Now, Dohan said, the humans opened fire. The corridor became a storm of light and noise. The Valari could not spread out. They could not use their numbers. They could only push forward into the guns. They pushed. They always pushed. But every step cost them blood. The fight for Section 12 lasted 6 hours. When the ammunition ran low, Dohan ordered his people back. They collapsed the corridor behind them, bringing tons of metal down on the enemy. "Fall back to the next position," he said. His voice was hoarse from shouting. "We'll make them pay for every meter." All across the station, similar battles raged. The humans could not win in open combat, but they did not fight in the open. They fought from shadows and corners and hidden rooms. They fought like rats defending their nest. By day 3, the Valari held 30% of the station. By day 5, 40%. But their dead numbered in the thousands. Admiral Tarath read the reports with growing anger. "They're using the station against us. They vent the air in sections they abandon. They flood our positions with coolant. They treat their own home as a weapon." His officers had no answer. This was not how conquered species behaved. They should be begging for mercy by now. They should be offering their children as hostages in exchange for peace. Instead, they kept fighting. On day 6, Commander GA called a meeting with her surviving officers. They gathered in a small room deep inside the station. Their faces were tired and dirty. Many of them were wounded. "I received a message from Earth Command," GA said. "Help is coming, but not the kind we expected." "What do you mean?" Dohan asked. "I mean that someone is coming to end this siege. They asked us to hold for 2 more days. Just 2 more days. Who? The relief fleet is still 12 days out." GA smiled. It was a strange expression on her exhausted face. "I asked the same question. They would only give me a number, 72. No one in the room knew what that meant. But something in Jihee's voice gave them hope. On day 7, a small shuttle launched from the station's far side. It was tiny, barely big enough for 20 people. Valari interceptors moved to destroy it. "Let it go," Admiral Torath ordered. "It is probably refugees. Let them run. Let them tell others what happens to those who resist." The shuttle slipped into hyperspace and vanished. Torath watched it go with satisfaction. The siege was nearly over. The humans were breaking. Soon they would surrender, and he would add another species to the Dominion's glory. He did not know that the shuttle was not carrying refugees. He did not know that it was carrying a message. He did not know that 36 of the most dangerous humans ever born were already preparing to answer that message. The Admiral thought he understood war. He thought he understood humans. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The building had no name on any map. It sat in the mountains of Earth, hidden by trees and clouds and lies. The people who worked there did not exist on any official record. Their families thought they had normal jobs in normal offices. Colonel Taeyong walked through the underground halls. He was 45 years old, with a calm face and steady hands. His hair was cut short and his uniform was plain. Nothing about him looked special, but Taeyong had killed 37 enemies with his bare hands. He spoke 9 languages. He could fly any ship ever built. He had spent 20 years doing impossible things in impossible places. And now he commanded the 72nd Special Operations Group. They called themselves the Ghosts. The briefing room was small and cold. 36 people sat in metal chairs, waiting in silence. They were men and women of different ages. Some looked young enough to be students. Others had gray in their hair. All of them had eyes that had seen too much. Taeyong stood at the front of the room. Behind him, a screen showed Seoul Station surrounded by enemy ships. 3 million civilians, he said. His voice was soft, but it filled every corner of the room. 47 enemy warships. Between 30 and 50,000 enemy soldiers on the station. Our relief fleet is 18 days away. He paused. We have 36 operators. Our job is to break this siege. No one laughed. No one asked if he was joking. The ghost did not joke about missions. Master Sergeant Yoonbi raised her hand. She was 38 years old, with short black hair and a scar across her chin. She had once held a mountain pass alone for 3 days against 200 enemies. When rescue finally came, they found her sitting on a pile of bodies, eating a ration bar. How are we getting in, Colonel? Stealth pods. We'll drift in with the debris field around the station. Their sensors will see rocks, not us. And once we're inside, Taeyang touched the screen. The image changed to show the station's layout. Red dots marked Valari positions. Blue dots marked human survivors. 3 teams. Team 1 links up with the defenders. You'll coordinate with them and begin harassment operations. Hit and run. Make the enemy afraid to sleep. He pointed to another section of the map. Team 2 targets the Valari command structure inside the station. Kill their leaders. Destroy their communications. Make them deaf and blind. And Team 3? Ask Specialist Jisoo. She was the youngest ghost at 26. She was also the best pilot in the unit. Some said she could fly a ship through a needle if you gave her a reason. Taeyang smiled. It was not a warm smile. Team 3 is going to steal a Valari warship. The room was silent for a long moment. A warship, Jisoo repeated. Their cruisers have crews of 300. We'll have 12 people. Then we'll have to be very efficient. Sergeant Minho, a quiet man who specialized in explosives, leaned forward. And once we have the ship, we turn their own weapons against them. We hit their fleet from the inside. While they're trying to figure out what's happening, Teams 1 and 2 finished the work on the station. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of mission the ghosts were built for. Taeyang looked at his people. These men and women had followed him into hell more times than he could count. They had bled together. They had buried friends together. They trusted him with their lives. Any questions? Yoonbi stood. Just one, Colonel. When do we leave? 6 hours. Get your gear. Say your goodbyes. You know the drill. The ghosts filed out of the room. They moved quietly, like shadows leaving a dark place in her quarters. Yoonbi prepared her equipment. She checked each weapon 3 times. She packed enough ammunition to fight a small war. She added a small photograph to her vest pocket. It showed a little girl with a bright smile. Her daughter was 7 years old. She lived with Yoonbi's mother in a small town by the sea. She thought her mother worked in an office. She thought her mother was boring. Yoonbi kissed the photograph and put it away. 6 hours later, 3 stealth pods launched from Earth. They were small and dark, designed to look like dead metal on any sensor. Inside each one, 12 ghosts sat in silence, breathing recycled air and waiting. The journey took 2 days. 2 days of floating through empty space, getting closer to the enemy fleet with every hour. Jisoo watched the Valari ships grow larger on her passive sensors. They were massive things, bristling with weapons. Their hulls were covered in strange symbols that might have been writing or art. Beautiful, she whispered to herself. I can't wait to fly one. The pods drifted past the outer patrol ships. No alarms sounded. No weapons fired. The Valari saw only rocks. Yoonbi opened a private channel to Taeyang. Colonel, how do you think they'll react when they find out we're here? Taeyang considered the question. They think they've seen what humans can do. They fought our soldiers, our Marines, our militia, he paused. They haven't fought us. They don't know the difference between a human who fights because he has to, and a human who fights because it's what he was made for. The pods approached the station. Somewhere inside, 3 million people were waiting for rescue. Somewhere inside, an enemy army was about to learn what fear really meant. All teams, Taeyang said. Prepare for insertion. Operation Ghost Protocol begins now. The pods opened. The ghosts vanished into the darkness. The hunt had begun. The Valari officer reported his position secure at 2 in the morning. His squad of 15 warriors held Section 47. They had barricades. They had heavy weapons. They had motion sensors watching every approach. At 2:15, they were all dead. No one heard anything. No alarms went off. The sensors showed nothing. One moment the squad was there. The next moment, they were gone. When reinforcements arrived 30 minutes later, they found the bodies arranged in a perfect circle. Each warrior had been killed by a single wound. Fast, clean, professional. In the center of the circle, written in Valari blood, was number .70-2. Admiral Tarth received the report on his command ship. He read it 3 times. What is 72? A code? A message? His intelligence officer shook his head. We don't know, Admiral. But this is not the only incident. We've received 16 similar reports in the past 4 hours. 16? 16 of our positions have fallen. Yes, Admiral. All the same way. Silent. No warnings. No survivors. And always that number. Toreth slammed his fist against his chair. Find them. Whatever is doing this, find it and destroy it. His warriors tried. They swept section after section of the station. They used every sensor they had. Thermal imaging, motion detection, sound amplification. They found nothing. The corridors were empty. The ventilation shafts were quiet. The shadows were just shadows, but warriors kept dying. Sergeant Dohan had fallen back to the inner station with his surviving defenders. They were exhausted and wounded. They had been fighting for more than a week with no sleep and little food. Then the strange reports started coming in. The enemy is pulling back in Sector 8, one of his scouts reported. They're not advancing anymore. They're building defensive positions. Dawn frowned. The enemy is defending? Against what? I don't know, sir. But I heard one of them talking on an open channel. He sounded scared. Scared. The Valari were scared. Dohan fought them for days. He had seen them die, but he had never heard of them being scared. He contacted Commander Jie in the command center. Commander, something is happening. The enemy is acting strange. Jihe's voice came back calm and steady. I know, Sergeant. Our friends have arrived. Friends? What friends? But Jihe had already closed the channel. On the Valari cruiser called Dominance, 12 shadows moved through corridors built for giants. Colonel Taeyang led from the front. His team followed in perfect silence. The Valari crew members were huge. Their footsteps shook the floor when they walked. Their voices boomed through the metal halls. They never saw the humans. Taeyang had done this many times before. Not with aliens, but the principle was the same. Move slowly. Stay in the blind spots. Strike fast and quiet. A Valari engineer walked past without looking down. Why would he? The corridors were supposed to be empty. This was his ship. He was safe here. Jisoo appeared behind him like a ghost. Her needle gun made no sound. The dart hit his neck. He was unconscious before he touched the floor. 2 more ghosts appeared and dragged the body into a maintenance closet. 30 seconds later, there was no sign anyone had been there. Security checkpoint ahead. Specialist Minho reported through his implant. His voice was barely louder than a thought. 4 guards. Taeyang studied the layout on his display. The checkpoint blocked the only path to the command deck. There was no way around it. "Take them together," he ordered. On my mark. The 4 ghosts moved into position. They were so quiet that the guards never looked their way. Why would they? Nothing had ever threatened them on their own ship. Mark. 4 guards fell at the same moment. 4 darts. 4 bodies. 4 seconds. Taeyong stepped over them and kept moving. Back on the station, Yoonbi had finished her preparation. Her team had spent 2 days mapping the enemy positions, planting explosives, and identifying targets. Now it was time to strike. "All units," she said into her communicator. "Execute." 7 explosions ripped through 7 Valari command posts at the exact same moment. Warriors who had been giving orders were suddenly buried under tons of wreckage. Communications equipment melted into useless slag. Before the survivors could react, the ghosts struck again. They appeared from ventilation shafts and hidden rooms. They killed with knives and silenced weapons. Then they vanished back into the darkness. A Valari commander tried to rally his troops. "Form up, find them. They're just humans." A ghost named Hana dropped from the ceiling behind him. A knife opened his throat before he finished speaking. She was gone before his body hit the ground. On the Dominance, Taeyong's team reached the command deck. Through the door, they could hear the Valari captain shouting orders. He had just received word of the attacks on the station. He was demanding answers that no one could give. Taeyong counted silently. 12 operators. 1 command deck. Maybe 30 enemy personnel inside. "Jisoo, you're on the pilot's seat the moment we're through. Everyone else, clear the room. Non-lethal if possible." Dead bodies raise questions. His team nodded. Tae HYUNG kicked open the door. The Valari captain was enormous, even by his species standards. He turned at the sound, reaching for his weapon. He was too slow. They were all too slow. Tae HYUNG put him down with a single shot. Around him, his team moved like water through the massive bridge. Needles flew. Bodies fell. The whole operation took 11 seconds. When it was done, every Valari on the command deck was unconscious or restrained. Jisoo slid into the pilot's seat. It was built for someone 3 times her size. She didn't care. Her fingers danced across the alien controls. "I can fly this," she said. "Give me 5 minutes to figure out the weapons." Taeyong allowed himself a small smile. Team 3 to all units. We have the ship. Phase 4 begins now. Somewhere in the darkness of Seoul Station, Admiral Torath received his final report. The Dominance had gone silent. Contact had been lost. Before he could respond, the Dominance began to turn. Its weapons charged, and the Admiral finally understood that he had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Torath watched the Dominance turn toward his fleet. For a long moment, he could not understand what he was seeing. That was his ship. His crew was on that ship. How could it be moving without his orders? "Admiral," his weapons officer said, "the Dominance is charging its main guns." "That's impossible. Contact them immediately." "We've tried, Admiral." No response. The Dominance opened fire. The first shots tore through Torath's command ship before anyone could raise shields. Explosions ripped across the hull. Warning lights screamed. Crew members ran for their stations, but it was already too late. "All ships!" Torath screamed into his communicator. "The Dominance has been captured. Destroy it. Destroy it now." But the Dominance was already moving. Jisoo flew the massive cruiser like it was a part of her own body. She had spent 5 minutes learning the controls. 5 minutes was enough. The ship weaved between the Valari formation. Its guns fired again and again. Each shot found its target. Engine systems. Weapons arrays. Communication towers. The Valari fleet tried to respond. They turned their ships. They fired their weapons. But they were shooting at their own cruiser, their own technology. They hesitated when they should have struck. Jisoo did not hesitate. Target that carrier, Colonel Taeyang ordered from beside her. Take out its fighter base. Yes, sir. The Dominance's heavy guns ripped through the carrier's launch doors. Secondary explosions bloomed inside the massive ship. Dozens of fighters died before they could even leave their berths. On the station, the Valari Occupation Force received a broken transmission from their admiral. All units evacuate immediately. This is. The transmission cut off as Tarath's command ship broke apart. The admiral had time to see the stars through the hole in his hull. Then there was only fire and silence. The Valari on the station did not know what to do. Their fleet was burning. Their admiral was dead. Their communications were destroyed, and the shadows were still hunting them. A Yuanbai walked out of the darkness in Section 47. She did not try to hide anymore. She walked slowly and calmly, her weapon at her side. A group of 20 Valari warriors saw her coming. They raised their guns. They could have killed her easily. She was small and alone and walking straight toward them, but they did not fire. Something in the way she moved made them hesitate. Something in her eyes. She walked like someone who had already won. She walked like death itself. Your fleet is burning, Umbi said. Her voice was calm, like she was discussing the weather. Your admiral is dead. Your commanders are dead. Your communications are gone. The Valari watched her approach. None of them spoke. There are 35 more soldiers like me on this station. We have been watching you for days. We know where you sleep. We know where you eat. We know every step you take. She stopped 10 meters away from them. Close enough to see their faces. Close enough to see the fear in their eyes. You can fight us if you want. We would actually like that. She smiled. It was not a nice smile. But I should warn you. We have been holding back. The Valari commander looked at his warriors. He looked at the human woman who should have been easy prey. He remembered the silent deaths. The impossible attacks. The number written in blood. He dropped his weapon. One by one, the others followed. All across the station, the same scene played out. The ghosts emerged from their hiding places. They stood before enemy forces that outnumbered them 100 to 1. And the enemy surrendered. Sergeant Dohan could not believe what he was seeing. Valari warriors, the same monsters who had fought to the last soldier on a dozen worlds, were laying down their weapons and kneeling. Who are these people? He asked Commander Ga. Ga watched the ghosts move through the station, accepting surrender after surrender. They are the difference between a human who fights to survive and a human who was born for war. The battle was over. The siege was broken. When the Earth Relief Fleet arrived 11 days later, they found Seoul Station damaged but standing. 3 million civilians were alive. The Valari fleet was scattered wreckage. And 36 soldiers were already preparing to leave. Colonel Taeyang, the fleet admiral, said, "On behalf of the United Earth Government, I want to thank you and your team for your incredible service." Taeyang saluted. His face showed nothing. "We did our job, Admiral. Nothing more." "Nothing more? You broke an impossible siege with 36 people." Taeyang looked at his ghosts. They were already loading their equipment onto a shuttle. They did not celebrate. They did not cheer. The mission was over. There would be other missions tomorrow. "We showed them what humans can really do," Taeyang said quietly. That was the mission. The captured Valari were eventually returned to their home worlds. They carried stories that would change their species forever. The Dominion High Council demanded answers. They called in every survivor, every witness, every soldier who had seen the ghosts in action. They call them Special Forces, one commander reported. His voice still shook when he spoke. They are humans who have been trained beyond normal limits. They are not like other soldiers. How many of these Special Forces exist? The council asked. We do not know. The ones who defeated us said they were just one unit. They said there are many more. The council sat in heavy silence. We thought we knew what humans could do. The eldest member finally said, We were wrong. We dreaded their soldiers. He paused. The memories of the siege still haunted him. We should have dreaded their special forces. The Valari never attacked human space again, on Earth. In a building that did not exist, Colonel Taeyong added another mission to his record. His team took 3 days of rest. Then they began training again, because somewhere in the universe, something else would eventually threaten humanity. And when that day came, the ghosts would be ready. They always were.